Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri. Continuing Cavs Preview Week. That's the name. That's the name of what we're doing this week. Cavs Preview Week. With another esteemed guest. He has been writing about the Knicks now for 2 years, almost 2 full seasons in the books on the Knicks beat. He doesn't have a car with alligators on it or any other animals, I don't think. But we won't hold that against him too much here today. Hello, Fred Katz of The Athletic.
Hello, Jonathan Macri of Knicks Film School. I will add, Cavs Preview. I like how you say Cavs Preview Week, and then you feel the need to clarify that you're calling it that, as if it's not like self-explanatory.
Well,
yeah, because very creative.
I was fumbling my way with Benji last night because we recorded last night about like what I was calling this week, and I was like an idiot. I was like, "Is there a name for this?" And then afterwards, Andrew was like, "It's Cavs Preview Week," so that is what we are calling it. I hope that's okay.
Well, you were very cavalier about going about that name.
I haven't even thought once to make that joke either on a pod yet or in the newsletter, and
that's why you bring me on.
I think less of myself that I didn't think of that because it's right there. I hope that's not the only such cavalier joke you'll make. That's
why I come here, just to kind of lower the average podcast intelligence. I appeal to the lowest common denominator, just making horrendous puns and writing about Mitchell Robinson dick jokes, and that's it.
Did you officially get nominated for the Pulitzer yet, or did they go just straight to the Nobel Peace Prize for? Because I think the likelihood of world peace increased by a not insignificant margin after that piece dropped.
100%. Send Mitchell Robinson to Israel and just have him talk about riding D trains, and everything will be fine.
Gandhi had his thing. Mitchell Robinson, dick jokes on the back of the post. I mean, 6 of one, half dozen the other, really. We're off to a rousing start. There you go. We're going to talk about players in this series between the Knicks and Cavs. But we're going to, so little behind the scenes, Andrew thought it would be Andrew Claudio, who has his finger on the pulse of popular conversation, let's call it, was like, I think it would be cool if you guys ranked all of the players in this series, because that is what the people are doing in the Twitter sphere. So both me and Fred were like, what would be far more interesting than that is like talking about who are the most important players in the series, because that kind of lets us get into kind of more nooks and crannies. And we came upon a compromise of, we'll do a quick ranking of like the best players in the series, and then we'll get into who's actually important and what we mean by important and all of the things that come with that. I have to say, Fred, when I sat down to do this exercise, I was like, this is going to be kind of rote and not very interesting. I actually found it an interesting thought exercise to go 1 to 20. What say you?
I didn't go 1 to 20 because I don't think there are going to be 20 players who play in this series.
Okay, 1 to 50, whatever. How many did you go?
Was I supposed to go 1 to 20?
No, we go however many you went.
I went like 1 to 17 because those are the players I anticipate being in the series.
That's fine.
And if you're just like I didn't put like Deuce McBride because I don't anticipate him getting legitimate playing time.
Why do you hate Deuce McBride? You wrote a great story about Deuce McBride last summer. I know you don't hate Deuce McBride. You actually really like Deuce McBride.
What a way to start off. This is a heck of a time. Okay, so who's the best player in the series? I think it's fairly obvious.
The only question about, is there a gap between number 1 and number 2? Donovan Mitchell's the best player in the series. Where do you think there deserves to be a gap between him and Jalen Brunson, or no?
Yeah. I mean, if I don't have a vote this year, I've been a voter 3 times before, but I don't have one this year. If I were a voter, and I can't say this with 1,000,000% certainty, because when I am a voter, I spend way too much time just like studying numbers, looking at film, everything like that. I think I spend like way too much time, to the point that people make fun of me on how much time that I spend.
Among other things.
But I would have Donovan Mitchell first team All NBA.
Yeah, I thought
so. Yes, I'd say there's a gap. Like he's first team All NBA in my mind. He has been absolutely unbelievable this season. Not only would I have him first team All NBA, I think he would be the first guard on my first team All NBA. Like I think he has had the best season of when you factor in just like, you know, I don't think he's the best guard in the NBA because Curry exists, but I wouldn't have Curry on my All NBA because he didn't play enough. Like when you just factor all those things in, playing time, all that, I think he has had the best season of any guard in the NBA this year.
I think the last couple weeks, not the last couple weeks, the last month really from Dallas made it easy to put Mitchell along with, for me, SGA, I'm assuming would be the other, or do you have Doncic still first team?
I don't know. One of those two.
Okay, so that's fair. But you said Mitchell's your first guard selection.
Yeah, Mitchell would be the guy. I mean, he'd be the. I would have Donovan Mitchell on my MVP ballot.
I think
put him fifth.
I would have him fifth. Yeah, and people
like
are gonna
when Bontemps did the last straw poll, I had Donovan Mitchell 5.
Okay. Yeah, and people are going to yell and scream about that and be like, "How? So you think there's a gap between Donovan Mitchell and the guy that abused Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs last year and abused Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland a month ago?" And I think again, this is where the rankings, this is an overall ranking of the best players in the series. Donovan Mitchell made twice as many pull-up threes per game at a higher efficiency rate this season. And yes, that is only one stat. It is such a massive stat when it comes down to the impact that a player can have on a defense. And I say this as someone who's been trying to figure out how the hell the Knicks stop the Cavs, which we'll get into. Like that has such an impact on a defense. Defensively, they're probably 6-1. I have Brunson second, by the way. Who do you have number 2? I should say we should go to that.
I have Brunson second too. Yeah.
Okay. Defensively, I feel like it's 6-1, half dozen the other. There are other aspects of Brunson's game that are certainly better than Mitchell's game, but like I don't know. For me, it just comes down to the gravity, the immense amount of gravity out on the perimeter. Is there anything else for you that's like a big deciding thing?
No, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's much of a conversation. I think it's pretty clearly Mitchell 1, Brunson 2. I think anybody's list would have Mitchell 1, Brunson 2.
I have Randall 3.
Me too.
Okay.
I have Randall 3 also. By the way, we're operating under the assumption that Randall is at 100% health, which we obviously don't know.
Yes.
But for the sake of ranking the best players, it just makes things easier to say, okay, Julius Randle's 100% healthy. And we're going to get an update on him by later this week at the latest, and we'll have a better idea on what's going on with the ankle. But
Knicks beat reporter Fred Katz, is Julius Randle playing in this series?
You know, I am a reporter. What a horrific start to the podcast. This is great. This is just going.
This is exceptional podcasting.
Is Julius Randle playing in this series? You know what? You started off by not taking advantage of the fact that you have a reporter who's there every day and is around the players every day and not taking advantage of that and asking that question. And I am going to show you why you didn't ask that question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? He's going to get evaluated again later this week. And we're going to see. And look, you know how the Knicks are. You know how secretive the Knicks are with stuff. My guess is even if they are 100% certain that he's playing today, like let's say hypothetically, making this up, everyone on the team, from the medical staff to Tibbs to Leon Rose to Julius himself, everybody on the team is 100% certain he's 100% healed, and they have him packed in bubble wrap, and they know that he's going to be fine. He's not allowed to leave his home over the next 5 days. They know he is going to be playing in game 1 on Saturday. he will be listed as questionable in game time decision. Like that is just how they operate. That's how they do it.
I so hope somebody clips the portion of you saying they know he's playing on Saturday and aggregates it and puts it out there. Okay, Randall's 3. I have Garland 4.
I have Mobley 4.
You have Mobley 4. Oh, okay, I have Mobley 5. Who do you have 5?
Yeah. Garland 5. Garland's a great player. Mobley had one of the 5 best defensive seasons in the league this year. He's just a world changer on defense. And I'm just kind of waiting. If I were the Knicks, I'd be really scared of the oh crap, this is the Evan Mobley leap series. Because that's going to come at some point, whether it's this series, whether it's a Bucks series, whether it's next year. Like at some point, that's coming. It's like, oh, whoa, Evan Mobley just took it to another level and changed the playoff series. And it could come in any second because he's that good. He's going to be an all-NBA player in my mind.
Yes.
So I would be horrified of that. And just defensively, puts it over the top. Garland is not. Well, I guess this might factor a little more into important versus better, but to me, Garland does a lot of the same stuff Mitchell does at a very high level. By the way, he's a very good point guard, and he's a better passer than Mitchell.
He is a better. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
He's actually a really underrated passer. He's a really good passer, like a really good passer. Great at creating threes, great at getting middle, great at creating threes. I love Garland's game. I think he's really good. But to me, Garland defensively, you can exploit. Mobley's more of a two-way guy. He's a good passer. I think he's going to be a really, really tough matchup for the Knicks, especially if Randall's not able to play. But we can talk about that in most important.
Yeah. I just, the way the league is now, if you have a guard who can do the things that Darius Garland can do, which again may not be as good as Donovan Mitchell, but as we just discussed, Donovan Mitchell is going to be may finish 5th in MVP, so there's no shame in that. And I put Garland ahead because I think the fact that he has deferred to Mitchell to a large extent this year. I'm not saying you, but maybe has collectively made us forget, like, oh yeah, this guy was a 22 or whatever he was last year, a 22-year-old all-star doing like basically all the things and the passing. Like that's all still there. He just has unselfishly and to his own detriment as a brand or, all of that stuff has kind of taken a step back. But it's whatever.
That's a great point. He's done it so willingly.
Oh my God.
Like he has so willingly been like, yeah, Donovan Mitchell, your team. When he was like, not only like he just got a max contract.
He was the guy. Like he was the guy.
Yeah. And by the way, the guy on a team that didn't make the playoffs, but like only because they lost in the play-in tournament. That was a team that was top 4, top 5 in the league last year until they had all their injuries at the end of the year. They fell to 7 and lost in the play-in tournament. Still finished over 500, and it was a really young team that finished over 500. And before they got Mitchell, I thought they were going to turn into a playoff team this year. In part because Garland is such a good player. Like he's only getting better. He is really, really good. I really think he's become a fabulous passer this year. His ability to find guys in the corner when he gets to the middle is superb. He's great at hitting his roll man. Like he's a really good scorer and he's a great pull-up shooter, which is going to be a huge problem I don't know if it's going to be a problem for the Knicks, but it's going to be a huge focus for the Knicks defense. And Garland he's really good, but Mobley is just a game changer defensively like that. They were number 1 in the league in points allowed per possession for a reason. And it's Mobley and the guy who's number 6 for me, Jared Allen.
Okay. So this is probably going to be another flip flop. I have Allen 7 and I have Quickly 6. And I know I'm putting Emmanuel Quickly over a guy who made the All-Star team last year. I think Emmanuel Quickly is that good and that I was going to say important, but I'm skipping ahead to our next thing. I just think Emmanuel Quickly is that good, and he's elevated himself. And again, talk about a guy who, how would we be now? This is, I think, a little bit clearer in terms of like Garland is an initiator, is a generator. quickly, if he didn't have to defer to Brunson or Randall, would his numbers look better? Sure, his numbers would look better, but he also wouldn't be, I think, nearly as impressive because he benefits so much from being able to be on the floor with those guys in addition to running second units. Do you have Quickly 7?
Yeah, I have Quickly 7.
Okay.
I just, honestly, I didn't think it was that far apart, but my tiebreaker was just like, Jarrett Allen is an all-star who had a great year. And, Quickly's had an excellent year and I think is probably going to win Sixth Man of the Year. But it's just like, okay, tie goes to the all-star.
That's fine. That's fair. Okay, so we're really pretty in lockstep with one another through 7.
Yeah, I think this is where it might shake up a little bit.
I have Josh Hart 8th.
Oh, okay. We might have a little flip-flop here. I have Mitchell Robinson 8 and I have Josh Hart 9.
This is funny. Yeah, I have Josh Hart 8th. I have Mitchell Robinson 9.
You know what our lists are like? Our lists are like the first and second round of the draft where the picks just invert.
The picks just invert. I actually felt Mitchell Robinson. I fluctuated between. I didn't think about putting him 8th. Hart was a solid 8 for me. That really just didn't come out right. I had trouble putting Mitch. I had him anywhere from like 9 to 12 because, and I think there's more fluctuation with Mitchell Robinson, and especially since like me and Benji talked about it when we recorded last night. Like he hasn't been the best center on the Knicks for a month and a half. I don't know, however long you'd say. But I do think, again, given what he's capable of and what we've seen him do and the fact that he loves to ride the D train, or at least make jokes about it, I think a 9 is an appropriate placement for him.
Yeah, that's fair. I was more going off of, I guess, his ceiling. But you're right. I mean, Hartenstein has outplayed him for a month, and Hartenstein has closed a lot of games. And I think part of the reason Hartenstein has looked as good as he has is because he gets to go against bench units a lot of the time. One thing I think will be very interesting will be to see if the Knicks stagger Mitchell Robinson to play with the bench, because one of the Cavs' weaknesses is defensive rebounding when Jarrett Allen's not on the floor. We think of them as this big conventional team.
Fred, Benji nailed this last night. He was all over this point. Keep going, please.
Oh, God, I haven't listened to the podcast yet.
It just dropped like literally an hour ago. So
am I being redundant?
No. It just confirms that two very smart basketball people who know what the fuck they're looking at when they watch tape have both identified the exact same issue for a team that you would not think has defensive rebounding issues because of their personnel, but they do.
Right. Yeah, they have defensive rebounding issues specifically when Jarrett Allen's off the floor. Like when it's Allen off the floor and Mobley on the floor, they're like 20th percentile in defensive rebound rate. And so what I think is going to be interesting is, look, Hartenstein's offensive rebounding numbers were fantastic this year. He was top 10 in the league in offensive rebound, maybe top 5 in the league in offensive rebound rate too. And Mitch was number 2 behind Steven Adams. So is Hartenstein going to feast on the offensive boards in those moments? Like he can't just be like good. He needs to feast. And if he's not feasting, Tibbs has shown a propensity to put Mitch with the bench unit at times in certain matchups that he likes. And I wonder if that's something that he's going to do, because I wonder if he's just going to say like, all right, Mitch, you're going to guard Mobley. Deal with it. Like there are times where they'll put Mitch on power forwards of Mobley's ilk. You know, he's guarded Giannis. Like he's guarded guys who aren't just straight up centers, even though the Knicks don't really like mismatch him. Like I don't see them putting him on like Isaac Okoro and letting him roam. Like they don't play that way. But I could see them being comfortable with him on Mobley and just destroy them on the offensive glass. Hey, Mitch, make sure when you are on the floor, we have a 35 to 40% offensive rebound rate when Jarrett Allen's off the floor. And I don't think that's an ambitious ask. I don't think it's an absolutely insane ask considering how great of an offensive rebounder he is and how good of an offensive rebounding team they are when he's on the floor. And by the way, those bench units that he would be a part of would also have Josh Hart. And Emmanuel Quickly, who's very good at tracking down loose balls.
And two other things. One, and I won't step on what me and Benji talked about, but there's a lot of reasons to like Isaiah Hartenstein on both ends of the floor with the starters, and particularly Jalen Brunson, in how they are going to try to cover Jalen Brunson on offense. And this is what me and Benji talked about, him, coming up to the level of the screener. That's something I think Hartenstein's more comfortable with. And then the one other thing, who else? And this kind of, again, we're getting into maybe the next segment, but also potentially the next player on our list. I don't know. Who else is going to be with those bench units potentially? RJ Barrett. And if there's one way that you could potentially utilize RJ Barrett in this series in a way that he's comfortable, how about the lob connection that we haven't seen as much of as the season has gone along, but like him and Mitchell Robinson. Again, Evan Mobley he's going to wind up maybe as a top 3 old defensive player of the year person. But like, I wonder if that's something the Knicks would try to exploit. I don't know. Maybe.
RJ Barrett's not the next player on my list, though.
He's not the next player on mine either. Who's the next player on yours?
Quentin Grimes.
Me too. All right. So neither of us have RJ Barrett inside
we talk too much. We need more of a first take type of thing. Or we need like a Skip and Shannon Sharp deal. Like you need to just brutally insult me for something and then storm off. Like you have Karis LeVert number 2 on your list. We both have Karis LeVert low.
Yeah, but
I normally am like not a huge Karis LeVert guy because he's just not efficient enough for me, but he hit 39% of his threes and still only had like a 52% effective field goal percentage. Like I've never been a huge Karis LeVert guy, but I'm surprised that we both haven't named Karis LeVert and we're number 10 right now.
Are you more surprised that we haven't named Karis LeVert, or are you more surprised that we haven't named RJ Barrett?
I'm not surprised we haven't named RJ Barrett. I know you. I've met you. I listen to your podcast.
You haven't named him either, and you're putting it on me.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised by myself. I know what I'm thinking.
All right.
Oh, man, I'm so surprised by what I've been thinking the whole time. No, I'm not surprised by that.
Okay, I'll just say that RJ
Quentin Grimes is obvious. Should we just move on to number 11? I feel like number 11 is interesting. Who's number 11?
And I just want to shout out your piece. So I don't know if this is a good thing. I purposely did not read your piece until this morning. One, because I've had a hectic last couple of days and I didn't have time, but I did want to read it before you came on. And 2, you nailed 2 of the same things that I wrote in today's newsletter, which is Quentin Grimes has been one of the best shooters from 3 over the last 3 weeks of the NBA season. And 2, that the Cavs don't give up any threes, and especially not wide open threes. So we both doubled over on that. Quentin Grimes is really good. I have RJ Barrett 10 I have RJ Barrett 11 and LeVert 12.
I have Dean Wade 11.
You really have Dean Wade 11?
I have Dean Wade 11.
Wow. That is
Dean
wild.
Wade's really good. Yeah,
Dean Wade
really
is
good.
solid, but Dean Wade's been hurt this year.
Yeah. Dean Wade's good though. And Dean Wade is going to play. If we're talking about best players in a playoff series, I'm just going to pick the dudes who play 2 ways. Like I'm going to pick the dudes who play good team basketball at 2 ways. So I put Dean Wade 11. Dean Wade is a really good role player. He'll knock down an open 3. He guards well. He moves his feet incredibly well.
He does.
Plays crazy hard. I think Dean Wade will matter. Like he is a.
Is he
people
healthy?
Make fun of him because he's. I don't know. We're just talking about best players. We're the most important players.
So maybe I don't even want to. Okay.
I just thought like if we're ignoring Julius's health, I just thought
it makes perfect sense. It makes sense what you're doing. It is within the boundaries of the conversation. When I was doing the list, I'm like, well, Dean Wade hasn't really been right for the entire season. And then I think back to, now that you're talking about it, I think back to a play earlier this year where Dean Wade stonewalled the guy that I just ranked ahead of Dean Wade, RJ Barrett, on a drive like it was nothing. because Dean Wade's
Dean
a pretty
Wade
good
is
defender.
a good defender.
He's a good
People
defender.
make jokes about Dean Wade because he's like, oh, D Wade, and he Zach Lowe sings the Dean Wade accountant song or whatever it is because he looks like an accountant. But Dean Wade is very good. He makes very quick. You know who he is? He is the Cavs' Obi Toppin, but he's better defensively. He does for the Cavs what like Larry Nance used to do for the Cavs. Like he is quick decision maker, can knock down a three. He's important one-on-one defender for them. He's a good team defender. Like he just does everything. He's a dude who will do well in a playoff series. He will do well in a playoff series as long as he's normal Dean Wade. The guys who get played off the floor are the ones who have one massive deficiency in an important part of the game on either side of the floor. Oh, you can't guard in space, so maybe you get played off the floor. You can't shoot. Maybe you get played off the floor. Like Dean Wade. So it's really important in a playoff series to just kind of be able to be solid at everything. Dean Wade is solid at anything you need him to be solid at. I think he's a good player. He's a really good bench. He's a really good bench forward.
Let's say this, and again, we don't know how the series is going to transpire, but let's just say for argument's sake, Isaac Okoro got gun shy.
But I realize this is a hot take.
It's but the way here's why it's not a hot take. I think it is a hot take, but here's why it's not. Let's say Isaac Okoro gets gun shy, and Isaac Okoro is not someone who likes being left wide open possession after possession after possession with the instruction of like, listen, dude, you need to shoot it. This is how the offense is going to go. Or he shoots it and it just doesn't go in. Then all of a sudden, if you're playing 4 and 5 on offense every possession, are we in a world where if Dean Wade, again, if he's healthy, like, oh, wow, the Cavs played Dean Wade 35 minutes last night against the Knicks. Like, is that where we're headed? And that may not be ridiculous for the reasons you just opined upon. Okay, so who do you... my God. I had Dean Wade a little bit lower again because I whatever. Who do you have next on your list?
Who do I have next on my list? I have next on my list RJ Barrett.
Okay. Let's save the conversation for RJ Barrett for the next segment.
Let's save for most important. Yeah.
Who do you have after RJ?
After RJ,
this is now 13 for you.
I have a tie between Okoro and Osman.
Wow, you're really low on Karis LeVert.
Yeah, I guess. I just kind of put him down there for effect because I didn't know what to do with Karis LeVert. But I guess Karis LeVert is probably there. I guess you're right. I guess it's Karis LeVert. You're right. It's Karis LeVert. He's kind of there, RJ. He's there, RJ. Let's go Karis LeVert.
This is where we deviate. After LeVert at 12 for me, I had Hartenstein 13, Okoro 14, and then Obi 15, and then I guess Cedi Osman 16, and Dean Wade 17.
Dean Wade last.
If I had to, redoing it, I would probably move him up 2 spots. But again, I'm like, he hasn't been as significant for them this year because he's been hurt. But that's my fault for.
Yeah. No, I get that. And Okoro's been dealing with an injury too. Although
he has,
I feel pretty confident that he's gonna. What is it? Risk with him? I feel pretty confident that he's gonna play. My thing with Cedi is he gives them an element of shooting at the 3 when he's in. And that changes a lot about their offense when they have an extra shooter there instead of Okoro. He's kind of been their net rating king for the whole year. They were like 5 points per 100 better when he was on the floor, which isn't some insane number. It's not like a quickly sort of deal, but like, I think you watch it and you're like, okay, that makes sense. He's another guy, like he'll hit a corner 3. He's a very confident shooter. He's had a good year for them. He's been good for all this talk if they need a 3, and it's not wrong. They definitely could use like a more reliable 3 because they rotate Okoro and Osman and LeVert and a bunch of other guys in there. But I think he's going to be a player in the series too. I guess you could argue. I mean, kind of at this point, it's just like once you get to these guys, it's just so hard to rank who's better. Like you're talking about just like solid role players who are all dependent on context. Like yeah, Hartenstein could be at the top of this too. Like he's, especially with the way that he's been playing for the last 3 months.
Regarding LeVert, I just feel, and I hope to God this is not the case. And again, this is something me and Benji touched on a little bit. Like, Karis LeVert could win the Cavs a game in this series. Like, he has the capability to do that. And some of the other players that we're talking about in this range, I don't think quite. I mean, but then you could turn around and be like, Isaac Okoro could win them this series based on his perimeter defense. But then that gets into the next conversation.
No, you're right. You're right. That's a great point. You're correct. We're going to go LeVert. And then last, I have Obi.
The disrespect.
Is it the disrespect? He's the 9th man in their 9-man rotation.
Did you name Lamar Stevens?
No, I didn't name Lamar. I guess after him, I have Lamar Stevens. You're going to get you're going to talk about, did you make this list with these? We'll add him.
Add who?
Stevens, because okay. Lamar the merrier, you know?
I can't believe wow. That's great.
Yes, I made this list. Here's the thing. I made this list with the express intent of apparently pissing everybody off. You make a list, you're going to piss some people off. I mean, I don't know where look, it was a lot. I'll be honest here. Put a lot more time into my most important list than I did into my best list. My best list, because I thought we were just kind of rolling off the best and being like, okay, that's it. And then the most important, I put more time and thought into. The best one, I was just like, all right, we'll put this guy here. I was like, oh, Dean Wade, that's fun. We'll throw him 12, you know? So,
okay.
That's really my disclaimer.
It's
but
fine.
You can get pissed, I guess.
Look, I think it just speaks to the fact that there are people who see what Obi Toppin does in games in which he gets a lot of minutes, and games that perhaps because they take place at the end of seasons, you know, might not quite have as much. You might not be able to take as much from, you know, but they still think one thing. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. I hate when people interrupt people on podcasts, and I just interrupted you. Sorry. Please continue.
I had nothing else to say. It just speaks to what you think of what Obi has done, maybe perhaps at the end of the season, at like the end of last season, anytime he's gotten more minutes.
I just, even when we're talking about best player, I just struggle to evaluate anybody in a vacuum. Like, it's not baseball, you know? It's not like baseball is not a complete vacuum. You have to account, you know, you're evaluating a hitter. You have to account for, you know, luck and what stadium they're playing in and all that kind of stuff. But like, it's a lot more of a vacuum than basketball is. Like, basketball is a very, very context-based sport. That's why even when I don't play fantasy sports anymore, but like when I was a kid and I would play fantasy sports all the time, I wouldn't even play fantasy basketball because I just thought it was like so different from the actual sport. Whereas like football and baseball are so much more compartmentalized. Basketball is just so context dependent. And I just struggle to remove myself from the context, which is we're operating in a world where Julius is healthy, which means we're operating in a world where Obi is getting 15 minutes. And it's really hard to be a series changing, excellent player when you're only playing 15 minutes. That's really my thought process there.
Okay.
And I can't separate that. Like if we knew LeBron were only playing 15 minutes in a series, like I would really struggle to put LeBron as the best player in the series.
That's very fair. All right, let's do most important, which is the thing we were supposed to spend the majority of the time on, and now we've kind of cut ourselves short. Let me ask you this: how did you go into this? What was your way of deciding how to rank most important players?
My thought process was, let's assume the series goes 7. If it goes 7 and somebody wins on a buzzer beater in game 7, who are we going to look at and be like, that's the guy who changed the series, or that's the matchup that won them the series? Not necessarily like who hit the game winner, but if the series is as close as it can possibly be, what is the thing that was like, Okay, that changed it for the winning team. That's why they won.
Did you do it relative to the last question? Then I'm going to get to actually who you have. Did you do it relative to expectations? For instance, if we look back on the series and be like, wow, Jalen Brunson might be the best player on a championship team. But he's already Jalen Brunson versus like Dean Wade, right? Like going far and above what most people, not you, most people would expect from D. So how did you reconcile that?
Yes, no, I definitely did it relative to expectations.
Okay.
If only because the lists would be too similar, and that would be good podcasting. Yeah.
Okay. Who's your most important player in the series?
My most important player is two people. Weiss and Rosenblum. That Weiss and Rosenblum report better be clean for Julius Randle. I think it's clear that the most important thing for either team in this series is Julius Randle's health. Now, if Julius Randle is healthy, they still might lose. The Cavs are really good. By the way, the Cavs are like, this exercise doesn't really give us an opportunity to talk about the Cavs like as a team. The Cavs are a really good 4 seed. Like they were number 1 in the league in defensive rating, 2nd in the league in point differential per possession. Like this team does not have the analytical profile of a number 4 seed. And by the way, because the East is so much better at the top than the West, I think you can make an argument that the Cavs are 4th in the East. And I think the Cavs are the 4th best team in the East. But I think you can make an argument they're a top 5 team in the NBA. Like they are really good. And I don't think if they get to the second round, they would beat Milwaukee, but they'll fight with Milwaukee because those are the 2 teams with the best rim protection in the NBA. Best co-rim protectors in the NBA. The Cavs are really, really good. The Knicks need everything they can get. And if they don't have Julius Randle, if they don't have his 25 and 10, if they don't have his 9 3-point attempts a game, if he's not able to get hot and have 38 and win him a game, or if he plays and he toughs it out because he's Julius and that's what he does. He is really tough and he wants to play every single game, as has been well chronicled. I think if Julius, just knowing how he thinks, I think if he can walk, he's going to be insistent on playing. That's what I think, because that's just how he's wired. And if he plays, but it's like, man, he can walk, but barely. Knicks are like, I just don't see how the Knicks can win that series.
I agree with you. Not to bring it back to another team that you've covered, but like regarding the whole Cavs being the 4 seed thing, when people think of 4 seeds, I think they think of teams like the Washington Wizards from yesteryear. Like that was a normal-ish 4 seed in many seasons. This is not that. This is a team that I think there's an argument that if they were in the West, they would be the number 1 seed in the West. Even you look back in some recent years in the East when like the pre-Kawhi Raptors, they were like the number 1 seed, I think, at least 1 year. Like this team is better than that team. So the seeding means very little. Number 1. Number 2, I don't know how there's any argument that this is not the most important thing in the series. And that's kind of why I was pushing you a little bit on the Obi thing, because I do think that there is a sentiment out there amongst some folk that Julius, he's not that he's like his reintroduction could have as many negatives as it does positives. And like on one hand, I get it. I get the mindset. I get it. But I just go with you. They're not winning this series without Julius Randle being at least somewhat healthy. I just don't see how it's possible. I just don't.
Yeah, the other part of it is like no one talks about Randle in this fashion because he's not some all-world defender.
Yeah,
I actually think Julius Randle's defense is going to be so important in this series if he's healthy. Because I don't know how they're going to guard Evan Mobley otherwise. Like, I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to struggle because the problem is, like, you're probably going to match up Obi on Mobley, which is going to be a tongue twister of a matchup. And you're going to have to deal with Mobley setting screens for Mitchell and Garland over and over again and putting Obi in pick and rolls. And against a good offense, and we just talked about the Cavs pull-up shooters, Garland, 39% on a high volume of pull-up threes. Mitchell, 39% on a high volume of pull-up threes. And by the way, it's not just that they take pull-up threes. That team sets screens like 28 feet out. And so what you have to do is like your guards can't go over those screens, because if you try to fight over those screens, you're just giving them 28 feet of downhill. And if that's against Obi in a pick and roll, like even if that's against a really good pick and roll defender, like that's just a lot to handle. You just give them a free lane to the basket, basically. So you got to fight under those screens at 28, and like Mitchell will pull up from there and he'll hit it. Like it's not like he'll pull up and it's just some crazy decision. It's a good shot. Garland too. I mean, Garland last year was over 40 on long pull-up threes. So I wonder how they're going to guard Mobley as a team. I wonder how they're going to guard Mobley individually. And if Tibbs doesn't trust Obi, which we know that in big moments, he's shown that he doesn't trust him enough to play him heavy minutes. All right, who stands in at the 4? Because Josh Hart, they like at the 4, and they really believe can play the 4, but Hart's really physical and he plays really hard. And he's obviously an amazing rebounder and all those sorts of things, but that's just a really, really big size advantage. And sometimes the size advantage can disrupt a guy, but like he can get up under him, and I'm sure they'll just tell Hart, just beat the living crap out of him, set a baseline where you're beating the crap out of him. So that way, when you continue to beat the crap out of him, it's not necessarily going to be a call, like a foul, like just Draymond Green defend him, you know? But that's tough with that size advantage. Mobley is a good passer. He might be able to pass over him, might be able to find shooters. He might be able to just, if he gets into the paint off the ball, like he might just be able to score over him. So that'll be interesting. So Julius's defense on Mobley, just the size is going to be important.
I think it's a couple things. One, if you're a Cavs offense and you see Jalen Brunson and Obi Toppin, and we'll probably mention him soon, RJ Barrett out there on the floor at once, you're walking into the Easter buffet room, and it's like, okay, who am I pulling into the action? Or do I even need to pull anyone into the action? Because you're like, there's just how many, you got Quentin Grimes as your perimeter defender that is like worth a damn. That's one. And two, I'm more bullish on how effective Hart's going to be able to be matched up against Mobley, I think, than you are. That said, if Julius is really hurt, and like, let's just say he isn't effective for the entire, or he's out for the series, or he's not effective at all in the entire series. And like, I feel like the more experience Mobley has with that matchup with Hart, the better he's going to be able to be at figuring out ways to take advantage of it. So the longer it goes. But again, as I'm talking about it, let's say Randall maybe misses game 1, then he's back for game 2, whatever it is. I think he's coming back. So I'm not as worried about that in a small sample size. But again, these are, it's a 7-game series, but it's still a short series. Okay. Who's your second most important?
The other part of, by the way, Randall being the most important, we just did our list of best players, right?
Yep. If
Randall is playing and healthy, we both believe the Knicks have 2 of the best 3 players in the series.
Yep.
You can win a series where I know this is simplistic and I don't always love it when people do this, but just for argument's sake, you can win a series when you have 2 of the best 3 players in the series, even if you don't have the best. If Randall is unable to play or is just like really hurt and not himself, then the Cavs have 4 of the 5 best players in the series in our mind. And that is real difficult to overcome. And we haven't even discussed, by the way, in terms of importance with Randall, what might be different from the Hawks series a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And how he learned from that situation, and how Jalen Brunson as an outlet might be able to help him if he gets doubled and swarmed, and the ability to make, maybe quicker decisions in those situations. So a lot with Randall. He's also the most interesting player in the series, I think.
Whatever your adjective is, most that comes after most. Randall's probably appropriate to fill in there. So then who's number 2 for you?
Number 2 for me is I don't know. I got quirky with these. I tried to make it different from the best player list. I have number 2 is Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson. Who's going to be the best player in this series? Because I think there's a pretty good chance. I think Donovan Mitchell had the better regular season. I think if I had to pick one to win a game today, Mitchell would be my guy. You talked about how Brunson went to Cleveland and roasted Mitchell. I don't disagree with that. But guess what Mitchell did on that night? Roasted Brunson. I mean, he went for 45 too. Like, let's not forget he had what 968 points in the first quarter of that game.
So
like
he was,
yeah, and he was 96 for 96. Like it was crazy. It was an absolutely ridiculous performance from Mitchell too. Those guys both have this insane ability to go off, and if one of them just like we've seen Mitchell go crazy in playoff series. Like that series against Denver a few years ago when he and Jamal Murray were just going nuts at game after game, and it was just like 50 piece in the bubble. Like we've seen Mitchell have his bad playoff moments, like we did last year against Brunson, and we've seen Mitchell have unbelievable playoff series too, where like he averaged 36 a game in that series. Like they lost that series, but he averaged 36. It wasn't because of him. They averaged 36 a game. He averaged 36 a game in a playoff series against a team that ended up going to the Western Conference Finals. So yeah. Mitchell has the ability to be the best player in the series, but Brunson does too. I mean, we've seen him average like 27 a game after January on incredible shooting. And if he can be the best player in the series, then the Knicks can win the series also.
I think if Mitchell is the best player in the series by maybe not even it doesn't have to be by a comfortable degree, but if like we look at this series at the end of it and be like, yeah, Donovan Mitchell was the best guy, there's not really a real way to argue that he wasn't. I don't see Cleveland losing the series. I think there was a world where we could look back and say, you know what, Jalen Brunson was the best player in that series, and the Knicks still lose the series because I think there is more variance on the Knicks side than there is on the Cavs side, which is what I think I said in a Substack chat the other day, which is like, I think the Cavs may only have the 7th or 8th highest ceiling in the league, but I think they have, what do they have? Like the 2nd, 3rd highest floor of any team in the league. Maybe that's being a little generous, but like it's a high floor. Whereas the Knicks, especially with the Randall uncertainty, I think you could argue that they have maybe a higher ceiling than the Cavs, but I also think that they have a considerably lower floor than the Cavs. And for some reason that point made sense in my mind to say in conjunction with this Brunson Mitchell. Somehow in my mind these two things are related, and I can't explain it in words. I feel obligated because we do have an outcoming. I feel like we have to at least talk about RJ Barrett. Was RJ Barrett on your list of most important players? And where was he?
Kind of. Emmanuel Quickly was number 4 for me.
Okay.
But it was kind of like Emmanuel Quickly / RJ Barrett / Isaiah Hartenstein. And the answer is, can you guess what the connection is?
The Harden, I mean, I could probably fumble my way through it, but why don't you just say it?
The answer is who's going to be the outlet when they trap Jalen Brunson.
Oh, okay.
And I think that is going to be a huge thing, because if Jalen Brunson is the best or second best or even third best player in this series, traps are going to come. And I think one thing that we could potentially see as late in close games is just matchup hunting on both sides. Like I could see Cleveland trying to run screens over and over again to get Mitchell or Garland onto Brunson, and then they attack. I could see the Knicks doing the same thing because that's what they like to do, and get Mitchell onto or Garland onto Brunson, or sorry, the other way around. Maybe I said it the other way, whatever. I think you can probably figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know how to speak anymore. It's a problem.
Me and you both.
But yeah, the Cavs could try to get, Brunson onto Mitchell. The Knicks could do the opposite. And by the way, I think that's why this has one of the many reasons why this has the potential to be the best series in the first round, just as a basketball fan. Like, it's 2 well-coached teams, 2 teams that play really hard, 2 teams that have a really distinct identity, and their identities are totally in conflict, basically in lockstep, right? Like the Knicks' offensive identity is it's an onslaught of the rim. We're trying to get to the paint. We're trying to get to the free throw line. And the Cavs' defensive identity is there's no freaking way you're getting to the rim. Like, that's a fun matchup. If late in the close game, you have Brunson trying to rig the defense so that Mitchell is guarding him, and then he goes at Mitchell. And then after he scores, you have Mitchell trying to rig the defense so that Brunson is guarding him, and then he goes at Brunson. Like, that's awesome playoff basketball. Like, when two guys just go at it like that, and they're both amazing competitors. Like, I think it could be really fun. But anyway, the Cavs will, if and when Brunson starts to go off, or maybe even before, they're going to throw a million different coverages at Brunson, as will the Knicks at Mitchell. They threw a million different coverages at Mitchell during that game a couple of weeks ago when they played in Cleveland and won. But Tibbs' big thing is when the double team comes, you just want to get off the ball. And Tibbs' bigger thing is the way you beat a trap is with the second pass, not the first.
Yes.
And what is going to happen? So I think closing, like when they close games, I think Emmanuel Quickley is going to be incredibly important, because we've seen times where Jalen Brunson gets trapped or even gets pressured late in games, and Tibbs is used Quickley and it's worked. And we've seen times where he's opted to go without Quickley and the offense has kind of stalled. And I think later in the year, he started to go with Quickley more. If they start to trap Brunson during games, like, how is RJ going to handle this? Like, I also think RJ is incredibly important from how are they going to guard him perspective. Like, are they going to sag off of him? Are they going to, but like when I say sag, I mean like, are they going to Russell Westbrook him? And
Would
if
you?
they do, what do you say?
Would you? Fred, he's made a quarter. He's made a quarter of his threes over the last 2.5 months.
Yeah. But he's a little bit of a better cutter when he's not getting guarded. So like, you'll see like, yes, I would, but I wouldn't just totally ignore him, because one thing that RJ will do, for example, a lot of times you'll see teams double Julius with RJ's man. And RJ has gotten really good at that little very tepid cut to the nail. And then Julius will find him there. And then RJ's pretty good at going to the rim. And even his decision-making is a little bit better there, because like Mitch is right in his line of sight. So it's not really a difficult read. So he either goes to the rim, maybe he'll lob to Mitch. Like, he's gotten better at that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't just like not guard him, but in those moments when they happen, like, RJ's got to knock down his threes, at least at an acceptable rate, like a 30-something% rate. And if the lane is also wide, if the lane is wide open and you just don't guard him, RJ is so strong that, like, I know they have unbelievable rim protection. It's still difficult to guard a guy who has 20 feet to be able to go, get to 60 miles per hour. And it's difficult. Like you're going to worry about Allen or Mobley getting into foul trouble in that way. Or just RJ potentially, scoring around the rim. And for what it's worth, he has not been able to knock down a jumper, but he's been good inside the arc for the last, however many games. Like, he's been good as long as he makes the right decisions. So that he's definitely important, but I also kind of feel like we know what, like, if RJ comes out and is just like not playing well, I just don't think I think he's going to play 20 minutes.
That's my number too. I think that's the number. And Benji said last night, 25. Like, Tibbs has the option to get him down to 25 if he's not playing well, because he has all these other guys. And I think it's 20. And I don't think it's crazy that if he's not playing well, that there's a world where we could see multiple games, especially as the series goes on, where the number is under 20. I also think that there is a world where all of the RJ stans who want to, murder people like me and you for having the audacity to have him outside of the top 10 of our best players in this series list will be crowing something fierce after the series and be like, see, that's why we never gave up on this kid, because he showed up big time and he was the difference in the series for all of the reasons that you just said, in the opportunities that he will have to make a difference in myriad ways. Certainly on the offensive end, I'm I'm worried a little bit more on defense, but we've seen him lock in defensively at times since the All-Star break. I hope we see that again. The only other thing I want to throw out there,
to be clear, by the way, I'm not giving up on RJ.
Yeah, no, I know you're not. I know you're not. Yeah.
And he's averaged 20 a game 2 years in a row. He has shown the ability to be really good at the rim at times. He has these moments where he gets crazy hot. I'm just like, you're worried about the inefficiency in a playoff series. You're worried about the lack of a jump shot in the playoff series. You're worried about the decision making once he hits the paint in a playoff series. Is he going to be able to find guys and spray the ball out to the perimeter? And you know, I'm you know, you're worried about the inconsistency. You know, he is, when he's hot, he's going to play, but he gets really cold sometimes, and he's not just inconsistent game to game. Like, he's just, he'll come out in a first half and just be like, what was that half from RJ? And they'll come out in the second half and he'll be like the best player on the floor. Like, what happened at halftime? You know? So that's difficult to figure out going into a series.
Yeah, 100%. If you gave me, you know, betting odds right now, or if we made betting odds right now between, again, we're assuming full health for Randall. If you gave me betting odds right now for quickly Hart, RJ, and Grimes for who closes, you know, the majority of the games, I think I don't know what the odds would be, but I think RJ would have the longest odds. Again, sitting here right now, which is the last thing I wanted to say, which I think Quentin Grimes, and again, I'm kind of piggybacking off of how Benji ended the pod last night by saying, like, I asked him, if the Knicks win this series, who's the guy you think you're going to think of when after the series is over? And he said Quentin Grimes. I think there's a world where Quentin Grimes averages double-digit three-point attempts in this series. I think they need him to average that many three-point attempts, assuming he gets it. But it's a chicken or egg thing. I was about to say, if he gets the minutes. Well, if he's firing away from three, he's probably going to get the minutes, especially with what he could do defensively. And, like, are there going to be multiple games where we look up and it's the fourth quarter and it's like Quentin Grimes just had 5 threes in the fourth quarter, you know? And I think, again, for all the reasons you very eloquently expressed, the outlet will be there because they will trap Brunson, and it's the next pass. Well, guess who's going to be able to get that next pass a lot of the time? Quentin Grimes. He may only have a sliver of space, but in this series, that's going to have to be enough. That's the only other thing I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, that's true. And something that, you referenced it earlier. I wrote about it on Monday morning, just about Grimes is on a crazy hot streak from three right now. He's shooting 48% from deep over his last 9 games. He's taking 10 attempts a game. He's been really, really, really good from three. And I think that's just so important for them. Sometimes he has a tendency to rush his threes. He could be wide open and he could just catch the ball and he could just go up so quick. He's playing with a nice patience right now. And that's going to be really important. And another thing that I wrote there is, like, everyone talks about the Cavs rim protection, and the Cavs rim protection is as good as everybody says. Mobley is awesome. Allen is awesome. That is going to be real tough for the Knicks. But the Cavs also are really good at guarding the 3-point arc. They're just an extremely good defense. And you're not going to get a ton of open threes against them, which means you got to capitalize on the ones that you do. I mean, sometimes we talk so much about, like, how will so-and-so respond to this and how will this guy respond to that? But, like, sometimes the answer is just, like, just play better. Like, when you have an open three, hit the freaking open three. Like, we're talking about, like, how RJ is going to do stuff. It's like, well, you know what? It might just come down to, is RJ going to hit 35% of his threes or not? And with Grimes, it might come down to, is Grimes going to hit 40% from his threes, or is he not? And there's a realistic chance he might.
I like it. That's a great place to leave this, as my Wi-Fi has decided to stop working, and I just watched Fred in the Matrix for the last 2 minutes. But I'm sure whatever he said was very intelligent because he's Fred Katz.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
Fred,
it was awful.
Can you? I hope this is not talking over what Fred is saying. Can you let the folks at home know where they could find you and your stuff before we have to unceremoniously exit?
Yes, you can read me at The Athletic. You can follow me on Twitter at Fred Katz. I will have a lot of Cavs stuff out this week. I'll have a piece coming out Wednesday morning, just about kind of something we've discussed in this podcast about how the Knicks offensive identity is we are going to attack the rim, and the Cavs offensive identity or defensive identity is you are not allowed to attack the rim. And I'll have a big series preview coming out on Thursday. And as of now, I think I'm going to write something with Kelsey Russo, who covers the Cavs for us, does a great job, covers the Cavs for us at The Athletic in Cleveland. And I'm probably going to co-write something with her on Friday. And then, normally I don't do game stories, that kind of stuff in the regular season, but I'll maybe writing off every game and next day pieces. I mean, I'll be right. My cadence will be way up. So if you want to read about the Knicks, there will be a lot of terrible writing for you to look at.
Awesome.
And you should subscribe to John's newsletter. John, I know you have to go. I know you have the health inspector coming.
What's up?
Can I say something for 15 seconds?
15 seconds. Yes.
I just think Knicks fans should know how lucky they are to have this podcast.
Oh,
not like with me on it. I mean, like to have you. Your post-game monologues on the post-game shows, your monologues to begin the post-game shows are so consistently spot on and great. Your ability to formulate. See, I'm saying nice things with your kid right there.
I wish you could hear me. I wish you could hear you. Right? I wish you could hear you.
They're so great. Like that's a real talent to be able to formulate that kind of thought and organize your thoughts that quickly immediately after the game and express them so eloquently and so well. You're like Michael Wilbon. Like Michael Wilbon is legendary for being able to write a column. He can just start writing a column, and in 20 minutes, he can write it just start to finish. And that's his column. And that's it. And for me, I'm like moving stuff around, taking forever. And just like your ability to do that, I just think it's extraordinary. I think Knicks fans should know how good you are and how lucky they are to have you. And that fan pods are not like this. They're not like this. So that's all I'm saying.
I hate you for this, because normally this is where I would go on a soliloquy about how undeserved that is, and two, how great you are at what you do. But I don't have time because my wife and child are here. And
go. That's a good way to end it. That's a good way to end it. 10 minutes
past my limit. All right, everybody go subscribe to The Athletic and read Fred Katz. Fred Katz is amazing. He's amazing. And we are, again, so lucky that he's able to come on here and do this. I would assume that the next time we speak to you will be after this series, whether it is after the Knicks season is over or it's just before the next series. We'll see. Fingers crossed. But until then, Fred Katz, you're the man. And everybody else, thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We will be back with you very soon. Peace out.